These Silky Waterfall photos are really cool, and it really takes a magic formula to create them. It's why hardly anybody knows how to do it. And you really have to take everything that you've learned about camera settings and kind of flip it on its head, at least some of it, anyways. Although maybe that's a lot of what photography is taking what you've learned about camera settings and then finding out how it does not apply to this situation, or you got to reverse it in that situation. Okay, let's have some fun with this. So the first thing you need to know is that you need to take control of your shutter speed. Now, you can do this in one of two ways. So you have your camera dial, and it's got all the little letters on it. One of them is the letter M, that's upside down. I don't know why I'm doing these upside down. You've got the letter M, you've got A, you have S, you have P, probably not in that order. If you are using Canon, you have one that says TV. So if you're using Nikon, Sony, most cameras, you need to switch your dial to S, or if you're using Canon, you need to switch it to TV. Now this is going to allow you to take control of your shutter speed. And you can also use full manual mode, and that's fine, but I'm not going to discuss things in terms of full manual mode. If you know how to use manual mode, then you hardly need my help on this. Okay, so you're in you're in shutter mode. You now have control over your shutter, and you can speed your camera up. On most cameras, a really fast shutter speed is something like 1/4000th of a second. Depending on your camera, you might even be able to go up to 8,000th of a second. My camera is insane. It's got some advanced technology in it, and it goes like incredibly fast, like insanely fast shutter speeds. But this is a typical like high-end shutter speed. You do not want to dial this in to your camera. So if you're in shutter mode, if you don't know how to use shutter mode, you're just going to have to Google your camera model, Canon Rebel T6 or whatever, and then shutter mode. And it will show you, it's going to tell you to put it on S or TV, and it's going to show you which dial can take control of the shutter speed. So you don't want to pick a fast shutter speed like this. You want a slow shutter speed. Now, 1/100th of a second is a slow shutter speed, but not nearly enough for what we're going to do. 1/10th is a slow shutter speed, but still not nearly slow. You need to be down to 1 second. So it's either going to say like 1 sec, or it's going to say 1, and it's going to look like inches, like that. So you want to slow it down to 1 second, maybe even 2 seconds or 3 seconds if you can. And here's the idea. Here's what's going on with your shutter speed. So when you click the button to take a picture, you hear a chick chick, and your shutter opens and closes. Normally, it opens and closes lightning fast, really fast like this, like if you're out in bright light. It opens and closes, and in that space of time, it records the picture. Now, these fractions here, 1/8000th or 1/100th, it's 100th of a second. So you take 1 second of time, and you chop it up into 8,000 tiny little pieces, and you take one little sliver, and that's how quickly your camera is opening and closing. And you may say, well, 8,000th of a second, that's really fast, but so is a 10th of a second. I mean, my goodness, even a second is really fast, but it's not to your camera. These are completely different speeds when it comes to your camera, when it comes to taking a picture. If you have a crazy fast action, 1/100th of a second is not going to freeze it. If you have any movement whatsoever, a 10th of a second is not going to move it, or not going to freeze the action. Now, you've slowed your camera speed down to like 1 second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds, and you did this so that when your camera goes chick chick, it doesn't go that fast, it goes chick chick. And in that space of time, from the first chick all the way to the last chick, it's recording the picture. And what's happening is that the waterfall is flowing during that whole time. The waterfall is flowing, and that's why. So if you go with a super fast shutter speed, you can actually freeze droplets of water in midair. So the waterfall might look like this. The water's coming down, little dots are coming off it when it hits the ground, and you can freeze those dots with a crazy fast shutter speed. But with a slow shutter speed, what happens is that insane rush of water that's going down the waterfall is moving and it's smearing itself all across your picture until really what you end up with is not anything like frozen droplets, but what you end up with is the silky waterfall effect. Now you've got to have a long shutter speed, at least a second, and even 2 or 3 seconds. The longer it is, the more silky the water will be. Now here's a problem. If you stand there holding your camera, so here's you at the waterfall. Look at you, very sticky today. You've got your camera in your hand. That is a nice camera you got there. And you snap a picture and you hear 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. I guarantee you in that amount of time, even if you feel like you were standing perfectly still, you were not. You have moved that camera and your entire photo is going to be a disgusting blur. What you need to do is put your camera on a tripod to take the picture. That way your camera stays still. And it's even better if you can use the self-timer. Like there's a 2-second and a 10-second self-timer. And the idea is you press the button to take a picture and then you let go and the camera will now stop vibrating and then you can take and then the camera will take the picture and it's going to be a lot more crisp. See, the idea is that, let me go to this next photo here. The idea is that, notice here how the rocks are nice and crisp and in focus. These rocks, even the rocks in the distance are nice and crisp. That's because this person used a tripod and they kept their camera still. Now the only blurry stuff is the water. The only thing that's going to be blurry in this photo is the stuff that's actually moving. The stuff that's still is nice and crisp. If this person had not used a tripod, all these rocks would just be a big disgusting blur. I've tried it. I've showed my students what happens. It's just going to be a gross blur. You need a tripod. If you don't have a tripod, one of the tricks that I do is that I would actually find a rock and I would set my camera on the rock. Now it's going to be a little hard to compose your photo because you got to go with the edges of the rock and everything. But I sit my camera on a rock and I do the 2-second timer and then I end up getting a pretty good shot. See, I don't want to carry my tripod around all day. I don't want to carry it around everywhere. I want to be free. And for the rare time that I do a photo like this, I have a few nice ones, but unfortunately they're locked away on a hard drive that I can't access right now. But I've got a few that I like, but I'm not going to carry around a tripod just to get this shot. I would rather set my camera up on a rock, on a box, on a branch, anything that I can do. And that's good enough for me. All right, so let's just review these principles super quick. Again, you want to be on shutter mode, and you can Google your camera model and figure out how to put it on shutter mode. They might all be a tiny bit different. You want to slow your shutter speed down to 1 second or 2 or even 3 seconds. All right. And then you want to make sure that your camera is on a tripod or it's sitting on a rock or something like that. And these photos will look better if it's not just the water, but there's also rocks or logs or trees or something in it. You need something in your photo that looks nice and crisp so that we can make sense of the flow of water that we're seeing. If it's just water, it usually looks a little bit weird. So go out, have some fun. I would love to see your attempt at these photos. You can follow the links on this video to get to my website, to email me. You can leave links in the comments. Have a lot of fun with this.